Hi, I'm Margaret Dickinson, and my case brief is on Parent and Parent versus the Lewiston School Department, which took place on August 14th, 2015. Before we get started, I wanted to give a brief summary of the case. This case involves a student who, due to developmental issues, other disabilities, and his family history, was placed in special education, but was being integrated into public school in Lewiston, Maine. During this time, he was a member of the lacrosse team for the school and was progressing well in the integration according to his teachers. But on May 14, 2015, the student was found and admitted to have written a bomb threat on the bathroom wall. He was suspended for an extended period of time while it was decided if this event was a manifestation of his disabilities. It was found not to be due to the disabilities, but the parents felt that the student was denied his education and that the conclusion it was not a manifestation was found without proper information and was therefore false. This case involves student X, who was living in his mother in Lewiston, Maine. He had a long history of behavioral difficulties such as ODD, ADHD, and a mood disorder, as well as disabilities of executive function. The student's family had a history of domestic violence, and the parents had split. He also had a sibling who passed away in 2008. In his early education, he participated in Head Start, but was quickly moved to special services school known as the Renaissance School. The student struggled in his early academic years with his behavior, mostly reactions in the moment to transitions, diversions, sudden changes. But he was also noted to have issues as a below average to average academic student. The student received therapy and medications during this time and was found to have a neurodevelopment disorder. This disorder prevented student X's cerebral cortex from being well integrated with his amygdala and limbic system. This means that instead of thinking first, the student acted first, as his disability came from the emotional center of his brain. He was given an IEP and action plans to follow as he progressed. His IEP team in 2014 decided that the student would slowly start to transition to public school in February after his break. The goals developed from this meeting focused on the student's impulse and behavior management, as well as his time on task and task completion. As the student progressed in his transition, another IEP meeting was held to add goals for reading, writing, and math. Overall, his activity was positive, and teachers said he demonstrated leadership and motivation in their classes. His 2014-2015 IEP included a positive reinforcement and supports plan. Part of this IEP was that when the student was agitated, he would be sent for a walk or to the gym to burn off energy, and this usually worked. Events preceding the incident were noted to have happened between September 26th and May 4th, where he engaged in 9 major and 5 minor classified incidents of verbal altercations, as well as 2 additional major incidents of a physical contact, one with a peer and the second involving throwing things out a bus window. The incident took place on May 14th, 2015. The student was in his health class. His teacher did not report any anxiety, stress, or agitation. In fact, the teacher testified that the student was behaving appropriately and was on task with his work. At about 9:15 a.m., he took a break to go to the bathroom, which lasted 4 to 5 minutes. When he returned to the classroom, he reported that he had seen a bomb threat. And when the principal and staff went to check out the boys' bathroom, they found the words "bomb at 12:01 p.m." written on the wall. The student was then called into the principal's office and interviewed. The principal noted the student was very calm in his demeanor and that he denied knowing who did it. He was also directed to talk to a police officer, where he again denied doing it and was noted as calm in his demeanor again. The student was questioned at the end of the day by 2 other police officers. He repeated his story that he had seen the threat and reported it, but did not know who did it. The officer, however, noted that during this interview, the student seemed very nervous and anxious. At the end of the day, his teachers noted that he was anxious and agitated and yelling, "Shut up," and pacing. So they took the class outside to burn off some steam before they got on the buses. The officer spoke to the student again in a second interview. At this point, the student was very nervous, and when asked to draw what was on the wall, the characteristics of his drawing almost exactly matched the bathroom wall. And when he tried to write the wording, the officer said it appeared he was struggling and not writing freely, therefore trying to alter his penmanship. The student told the cop that he messaged his mother while in the bathroom, but then recanted and said that it had been on Facebook. He started crossing his stories over, so the officer told him he was a suspect of the threat, and he advised the student that if he admitted to the incident, he could avoid criminal charges. Then the student admitted to writing the threat. He said that he didn't want to have a criminal record because he wanted to get into the military when he got older. When asked why he did it, the student stated that he had broken up with his girlfriend the day prior and was just mad overall. When the mother and stepfather were contacted and asked to come to the school, the mom asked a few questions but became very upset and left the meeting. She claimed the officer threatened the student with criminal charges if he did not admit to the threat. She also stated that the student had written her a Facebook message saying he was taking the blame but did not want her to bring it up. The consequences of this was based on the investigation of 2 other students and Student X, and with the student's admission to the bomb threat, Student X was suspended for 10 days. During this time, a manifestation determination review was to be held. Parents wanted it held on May 29th to prepare and have 2 outside providers come and testify for the student. The school declined this, and then both parties agreed to hold the MDR on May 26th without the outside providers. The MDR indicated the student's behavior in writing the bomb threat did not come from his disability. This was based on the claim that the student had been doing well in school with little interruption on the day, and the teacher had testified his work as being observed and actions as just fine, with no anxiety or stress before or after the incident. However, during this evaluation, the psychological evaluation from Dr. Hamilton was not in the student's file and was not reviewed in the decision. In the aftermath of the MDR, the school committee meeting was held and decided that the student's suspension would be extended through June. The committee met again in June, and at that meeting, the principal recommended to suspend but not to expel the student for the rest of the school year, so that if he came back to school, he would not be picked on by his peers. During this time, it was decided he would have an educational service as a morning session in an alternative setting that included transportation, as well as summer school. But as a result of this suspension, the student missed a career day and a promotion ceremony. The student did not attend the morning education sessions, but he did attend summer school, which allowed him to complete his grade and be promoted to the next school. In the opinions of the outside sources that were not included in the MDR, the student's diagnosis of ADHD and mood disorder may have had a substantial impact on his conduct in writing the bomb threat. They both cited the student's breakup with his girlfriend the day before as a possible cause. These 2 sources stated that the ADHD and disorders may have played a role in his conduct because of lack of insight and poor judgment that are symptomatic of these disorders, but they could not testify with certainty that this was a manifestation. One of the people felt that in the act itself were done in a state of calmness, it would indicate that a student was in a more deliberate and thoughtful state. But he felt that this might have been due to other undisclosed psychiatric conditions caused by a trauma that the student had not reported in therapy or continued to discover. So the issues of this case are whether the school committed procedural violations under Muser, whether these procedural violations interfered with the parent's ability to participate in the IEP meeting, whether these violations caused the IEP team to incorrectly conclude the student's conduct was not a manifestation of his disability, and overall, whether the student's conduct in question was a manifestation of his disability. In the holding, hearing officer decided that since there was no evidence the student had engaged in a deliberate conduct previously, the parents had not proved that there were any violations during the MDR, that the student's conduct was not a manifestation of his emotional disturbance. No compensatory education was warranted. Case was ruled in favor of the school. The rationale for Issue 1 was that there was no violation in the procedure for refusing to continue the MDR, as the open-ended hearing may have caused the student harm by delaying a decision on his change of placement from school. The officer also held that if the two outside sources had been able to present, their opinions would have been based on knowledge of the student from 3 months prior to the incident, and therefore their knowledge was stale or outdated. Their participation in the MDR was not crucial, and there's no legal requirement for the presence of every outside provider in order to make an informed decision. Therefore, the officer ruled that the parents had adequate participation in the child's IEP. The rationale for Issue 2 was that the school did not commit procedural violations in denying the parents' request to postpone or continue the MDR, since they did in fact have a meaningful opportunity to participate in the MDR process. Since they agreed to meet on May 26th with the school, all qualifications were met. The denial to continue the MDR again was found not unreasonable due to the responsibility of the school to be as urgent as possible with the student's placement. As for the failure to include the evaluation of Dr. Hamilton, was found not fatal to the process and did not void the IEP team's finding of the behavior not being a manifestation. The officer felt that Dr. Hamilton's report on the student correlated with those of the IEP team who had the most current interactions, and therefore it would not have significantly impacted the outcome of the meeting. For Issue 3, the ruling was that the conduct in question was not a manifestation of the student's disability. The opinions of the outside sources were insufficient to warrant a determination of this manifestation. In review of the student's calm manner before and after the event, it was suggested it was a premeditated occurrence, and the testimony of the teachers that they were surprised to find the student responsible due to it being out of character with his previously impulsive behaviors backed up that it was not a manifestation of his disabilities. Hearing officer felt that this event was pre-planned and deliberate and did not coincide with any previous issues. There was no evidence that the student was angry, agitated, or provoked before or after the writing on the wall, only at the end of the school day, and therefore the officer ruled the school did not err in determining no correlation between the conduct and disability. So my critical question is, if the connection between the student's breakup, history of domestic abuse, and the incident had been examined further, could it have proved that the student's actions were in fact a manifestation of his ADHD and the neurodevelopment disorder that was diagnosed by Dr. Hamilton in the missing evaluation from the IEP meeting? If the student had no previous incidents of meditated reactions and was consistent in his claim, Could it have been a neurodevelopment disorder that evolved?